Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, the Forward Corporation, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Garber Chevrolet, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. Yep, it's a radio show. Just like to put that out there. You might be hearing it as a podcast, but it does originate as a radio show, unlike 99.9% of all other podcasts. So how are you this week? Can you feel it? Depending on where you are in our state, can you feel it? It's out there. I can feel it. Maybe because I want to feel it. It's only mid-February. But why does it feel so much like spring is just around the corner? More daylight every day. Now, I had been saying, can you feel the days getting longer? And my good friend Craig Plowman said, Avery, you big dummy. The days are still 24 hours. They're not getting longer. Okay, Craig, we're seeing more daylight each day, and we are. I saw my first dead skunk. That's a sign, isn't it? I saw it last week. I was driving at night, and I just got a glimpse of it. I thought, oh, there's my first dead skunk. I got to come back in the morning and get a picture of it. I came back in the morning, and it was gone. I thought, oh, man, because to me, the first sign of springtime is the first dead skunk in the road. But then the next day, I was driving through town, a city street, 40 miles an hour, and I see, boom, there's a dead skunk in the road. So I turned around. I couldn't just do a U-turn. It was a pretty busy street. So I went a block around, came back. There's traffic behind me. I stopped the truck in the middle of the road, leaned out the window to take a picture, and went, oh, that's not a dead skunk. That's a cat. I was disappointed. But I'm getting reports of dead skunks all across the lower part of the state. For me, the real test in my world is going to be when the red-winged blackbirds come back. That, to me, is really something. John, I forgot to start my clock, so give me about 5 minutes, will you? Give me a 5-minute warning? Okay, all right. I like the rhythms, the natural rhythm of Mother Nature. I like the old sayings. You can see a lot of these in Farmer's Almanac. But I like these old sayings. I like these farmer stories. I like these wise old words of wisdom because I think there's a lot of truth in them. And I'll give you one example. And this is so well known. When red sky in morning, sailors take warning. Red sky at night, sailors delight. Well, think about that. If you got a red sky in the morning, maybe it's going to storm. Sailors take warning. Red sky at night, it's going to storm overnight. It's going to be nice tomorrow. Sailors delight. I have kept track of these things over the years. A lot of these come from my grandpa. The ponds won't freeze up till they're full. If the leaves turn over, if you can see the bottom of the leaves, it's going to rain. Whatever direction the wind is blowing on the first day of spring is the direction it'll blow for the next 6 weeks. One of my favorites. It'll be 6 weeks from the time the tree toads, cicadas, start buzzing till the first frost. Now, that one I've been keeping track of, and it's not 6 weeks. Maybe it was in the old days. For a while, it felt like it was closer to 8 weeks. Now it's actually closer to 10, but I think there is a correlation from the time the cicadas start to buzz till the first frost. I think there's a relationship there. Another one, you can tell how much snow is coming by the height of the muskrat houses. Thinking there is they'll build them high enough to stick out of the top of the snow. If it rains Easter Sunday, it'll rain the next 7 Sundays. The suckers will start running when the snow is out of the woods. Continuing on, when horses stand side by side facing opposite directions, it's going to rain. Never had horses, can't count on that one. If there's no dew in the morning, it's going to rain. If there is dew in the morning, it's not going to rain. If it rains before 7, it'll quit by 11. It will not rain all day. For every fog in the summer, there'll be a snowstorm in the winter. And there's more. I'm not going to bore you with more of them, but I love these things. I see them as a way to honor our predecessors, keeping track of these things. So this is what I did. I started to write these down. Several of them I remembered from my grandpa. I got a bunch of them from my dad before he passed. And I want to write these down and remember them because I just think that as a society, that we're getting away from our relationship with Mother Nature and the natural world. Here's the example I use all the time. When my granddad wanted to know what the weather was going to be, he walked out on the porch that morning. He looked at the sky, he felt the breeze, he smelled the wind, he smelled the air, and he knew what it was going to be. If I want to know what the weather's going to be, I pull up my phone. Just one very basic real world example of how we're losing touch with Mother Nature and the outdoors. If you have one of those sayings, please email it to me, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I will give you credit, and with your permission, I will add it to the blog that I've been keeping track of for the last several years, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Okay, some housekeeping. Our big Trinity Monitor Wild Game Dinner and Auction, Saturday, March 2nd at the Great Hall in Midland. We still have some tickets left. We are going to sell out, but we still have some left. Go to one.bidpal.net. That's O-N-E, one.bidpal.net/Trinity Monitor to get your tickets. Great wild game dinner, great silent auction, the live auction, some wonderful hunting and fishing adventures, guns, blinds, hunting trips ranging from an African safari to a 3-day guided Michigan turkey hunt, fishing trips ranging from Lake Michigan salmon fishing trips to Saginaw Bay walleye trips to a UP brook trout fishing trip. But you got to be there to get involved in the live auction. one.bidpal.net/Trinity Monitor to get your tickets for that. It's going to be a great event. Great event. Another event that has now been finalized. This is down the road, but I know your summer calendar gets busy, so mark this on your calendar right now. Monday, July 29th. Our Outdoor Magazine radio golf outing is a go. It'll be at the West Branch Country Club. All proceeds will go to the MUCC Youth Camp. I am really excited about this. I've never put a golf outing together before. I've golfed in a bunch. I've never put one together, and I'm not putting this one together either. I have a bunch of friends helping me out. That is Monday, July 29th in West Branch. All proceeds to the MUCC's Youth Camp. If you would like to get involved in that, maybe sponsor a hole or whatever, again, send me an email, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. That's Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Okay, a topic of discussion this week, and this is going to be a theme throughout the first 2 hours of the show. By the time you hear this show, the NRC will have already met on this, but not have made a decision. This involves the proposal to cut 3 months out of our Michigan coyote hunting season from April 15th to July 15th. The DNR admits this is not a biological decision. This makes me very nervous. It appears to be backed at this point by some sportsmen's groups. Sportsmen's groups that I have much respect for and support for. In 1996, the voters of Michigan passed Proposal G, which called for sound scientific wildlife management practices when it comes to the management of fish and game in Michigan. If it's admitted that there is no biological reason for this, why do it based on social science? The sportsmen's groups who are pushing it are concerned, apparently, and this is not a direct involvement by anti-hunters. That would be one thing, right? But the anti-hunters have put so much pressure on some types of hunting in Michigan that it appears to me that those groups are worried about the perception of hunting coyotes during the wet season, during the season when they have pups. So there's a proposal out there to limit hunting opportunities presented and backed by sportsmen's groups with no biological reason. That's a big concern. And we're going to talk a lot more about that this week, including right after the break here in Outdoor Magazine. We're going to talk to coyote hunter Chris Kreiner, get his thoughts on that. Then Captain John Littlefield tells us how you can become a charter captain this spring. Hour number 2, extreme long-range shooter Paul Phillips. Then Justin Tomei of MUCC with more on this coyote hunting situation and maybe some wolf news as well. And in our third hour, we're talking fishing with the man himself, Mark Romanack of Fishing 411. And, of course, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. That's coming up this week right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Port Huron, WPHM, 1380 AM. You can hear us on the other side of the state, Ludington, News 97, 98, 98.7 WLDN. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Marquette, WDMJ, 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by, you know what that sound is. I don't even have to tell you anymore. That's the sound of my Rapid River knife opening. It's a knife I carry with me all the time, every day. I think a good knife is one of the most valuable tools a person can have. And I think Rapid River is, the best out there. They're made by craftsmen in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. They come with a lifetime warranty. Something goes wrong, take it up there, send it up there. They'll fix it. They will sharpen that knife anytime you want. Go to their showroom if you get a chance. On US 2, just east of Rapid River. It's a destination. A lot of beautiful mounts. You can watch your knives being made. You can get your knife engraved while you're there. And if you can't make it up there, go to the website, rapidriverknifeworks.us. That's rapidriverknifeworks.us. I've been trying to get Chris Durson, owner of Rapid River, on the show here for the last couple of weeks. He's been very, very busy. But look for that. Again, the website, rapidriverknifeworks.us. Okay, I said in the previous segment that there's something going on in our state right now that I find disturbing, and I'm not even a coyote hunter. In a nutshell, there is a proposal, and by the time you hear this show, the NRC will have met to talk about it, but will not have made a decision. At least that's my understanding. The proposal is to cut 3 months out of our Michigan coyote hunting season from April 15th, April, May, June, July, 4 months. May, June, July, 3 months. I'm a broadcaster, not a mathematician. 3 months out of our coyote hunting season. And they admit, for no sound biological reason. Chris Kreiner is a hardcore coyote hunter. You can learn more about him on his website, C. Kreiner Media, and Kreiner's Kreiner. And he's also a wonderful, really great photographer. CKreinermedia.com. But Chris is with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line to talk more about predator hunting and more about this situation in general. Hey, Chris, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Good morning, Mike. Thank you.
Hey, listen, I want to talk a little bit about you. When I first got to know you and was interacting with you, you were a hardcore whitetail hunter. Now I know you as more of a predator hunter. How did this transition happen?
Yeah, it was, whitetails were my thing years ago, and I still get out after them once in a while. But when coyote hunting, centerfire at night started in 2000, it was early 2017. I think actually it passed in December 2016. I found a tremendous amount of enjoyment going out and standing out in the fields and being able to be with buddies. You can almost associate it with your waterfowl hunting or turkey hunting, because you can kind of talk with your buddies. You don't need to. I mean, you can. It's a good time out in the fields. And once I started doing it and started calling in coyotes and seeing how many were out there, it just became absolute addiction. I love being out in the fields and enjoy sharing the times in the fields with buddies.
And it's amazing how popular it's become.
Oh, it's growing substantially. And you know, you get guys that get into it, they enjoy it for a little while and they get out of it. But it seems like as a general rule, the sport is continually growing. There's more and more guys getting into it and staying into it. And then you add the technology that you can use while you're in the field, is also just super cool. It's really neat to be able to use it.
Well, the technology you're talking about, infrared, night vision, I mean, you guys are again, high tech out there.
You got your night vision, you got your thermal vision. I've been pretty much in the thermal vision world for 3 years now, and it's just amazing what you can see at night. Even if the coyotes are not cooperating, you're watching the deer, you're watching rabbits, you can see mice that are 150, 200 yards away through your thermal. You can see everything that's alive once the sun goes down.
Chris, here's a question, and I'm going to play devil's advocate, and you know I'm on your side here, but why hunt these things? Most people don't eat them. Why do we hunt them?
Well, predation on your other game species that you do eat is very high, and most of that predation comes from coyotes. They'll eat squirrels, rabbits, mice, the occasional pet. You know, there's the reason we got involved back in 2016 and they were allowing the centerfire at night to happen is because the amount of complaints that the DNR was receiving regarding the number of coyote interactions with livestock and other game animals was just filling up their phone lines. So they knew that they had to make a change and make something happen to reduce the coyote population. So it took a lot of support from the centerfire at night guys. There was a small group on Facebook, a small group of guys that really pushed for this to happen. And they did all the research of local other bordering states, I should say, to find out, you know, what is the safety concerns here, you know, to appease. Obviously, our conservation officers were really concerned about the safety factors, and it came to find out that there was next to no accidents in these bordering states. I mean, the numbers were so ridiculously low, it put deer hunter numbers to shame. But so it was found to be a very safe activity, and so that's why they allowed it. And it really has done a number and hugely improved the coyote population to more sustainable numbers.
And even though there's a lot of people out there hunting them at this point year round, we still have coyotes all over the place. Imagine if you guys weren't out there. Imagine what the coyote population would be like in Michigan.
Oh, yeah. I mean, for example, I did have a rough spell this last summer, you know, where the hunting was really slow. But that has to do with the fact that the coyotes are constantly moving. You got to be where the coyotes are if you're looking to be successful. And but just in the last 5 days of hunting, I've been out 3 days of them. I should say the last 5 days I've been out 3 nights, and I've seen 17 coyotes in the last 3 nights.
Wow.
So the coyotes are out there, and they do travel a lot, and there's pockets of them where the population is going to be higher than other areas, but there's lots of coyotes still.
And as you say, you know, a couple of things that really helped boost the popularity of coyote hunting, centerfire rifles after dark, and being able to hunt them year round. There's something in the works, in the wind right now, about limiting that hunting season. What are your thoughts on this? What's your take on this, Chris?
So actually, I think a lot of the reasoning for this, a good part of it, is social media has really done a lot to put a bad image in some people's mind that may not have a thorough understanding about coyotes. And in that being during the pupping and pup rearing season. Now, I would say the chances of shooting a female that may be nursing pups still is very, very low. It can happen. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's very low. And that is what they're pushing for, is because on social media, guys are bragging, oh boy, I shot this female. She was nursing pups. And by taking her out, I took out her entire litter. And so people that don't have an understanding on when pups are weaned, when pups are capable of being on their own, are the ones driving this. And it's ultimately, if we allow this season to go back to the way it was prior to December 2016, it's not going to, they've proven that it's not going to change the numbers of that are taken during that time of season. There's no scientific evidence at all that this is going to make a change. So, based upon what the NRC and DNR are supposed to be following, they need to have scientific evidence before they can make any rule changes. And as of right now, that's not there. But they're pushing this rule through anyways.
Chris, this is interesting from so many different perspectives. As you say, and I said in the previous segment, Proposal G, 1996, said sound scientific management practices will be followed. DNR even said there's no biological reason for this. So that's one very interesting part. The other one that you brought up is that the impetus of this whole thing is people shooting their mouth off on Facebook that our hunters casting a bad light on us as hunters. And as a result, it's my understanding that a couple of sportsmen's groups are the ones that have actually been pushing this because they're worried about the perception.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the thing is the general hunter and general sportsman out here, we don't have a lot of ties within the DNR or the NRC, minus going, except with the exception of us going to these meetings and being a part of these meetings. Some of these guys with these other groups are in tight with certain people in the DNR and in NRC. And so this is where the politics plays a role. And politics, as we know, have no place in our wild game laws. But this is always becoming part of the case. So it's very frustrating from a hunter perspective.
It's one thing to be attacked from the outside. It's another when sportsmen are willing to sacrifice other sportsmen's activities, if that's what's going on. That's very troubling.
It is, so much so. And I have a group of, I got trappers around me. I've got some dog runners around me. They love running their hounds after coyotes and stuff. And I love hearing their success stories. I am out here, I enjoy the hunt as much as I enjoy seeing these other guys in their tactics enjoy the hunt. I don't understand why there's this perspective of, these are my coyotes, why are you chasing after them? The same goes for deer hunters. These are my deer. Why are you chasing, why are you hunting my deer?
Yeah.
And that aspect of it drives me nuts.
Well, me as well, Chris. Listen, we got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. I'd like to keep you around and talk a little bit more. We're talking with Chris Kreiner. CKreinermedia.com is his website. CKreiner, Kreiner, CKreinermedia.com. Check out his work. This guy's doing some phenomenal photography work. He's also doing some great video work, working on a TV show as well. I'll talk with him about that after the break. But this is a very troubling situation. Think dove hunt. We lost the dove hunt because hunters didn't support other hunters. Let's learn a lesson from that. We are all in this together. More with Chris Kreiner after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show on more than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan, including WZTK in Alpena, that's 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Flint on Sports Extra 1330 WTRX, and north of the bridge in the Sioux on News Talk 1400 WKNW. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Killer Food Plots, Michigan-based, family-owned Killer Food Plots. Now, I know you're not out putting in food plots right now, but the way the weather's going, you might get an early jump on that season, and it's certainly not too early to start thinking about it. You know, what do you want to do differently this year? How do you want to improve things this year? Rich Grazan of Killer Food Plots can help out. Go to the website killerfoodplots.com. That's killerfoodplots.com to learn more. And I will get Rich here on the show in the next few weeks to talk more about this. But Killer Food Plots, Michigan-based, family-owned, two great factors right there. The website killerfoodplots.com. While you are online, please check out my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and head on over to ckreinermedia.com. That's the website of Chris Kreiner, who's with me now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Chris, how did you take your love for coyote hunting to the next step with documenting these hunts so beautifully like you do?
Well, I appreciate that, Mike. Yeah, it really, I was really intrigued by what a camera was capable of drawing in from a light perspective, and I learned a lot about long exposure photography. And when I started making that transition and then started bringing specific lighting angles into it as well, it really started making images pop. And so I try to use that perspective and bring, I guess, a better light to the hunting side of the world. You know, you don't want to have, that's the other part of social media I wanted to bring up, is guys posting graphic pictures. There's no place for that on social media. I know people want to say that they're, you know, you have the right to be able to do what you want, but some rights come with consequences too, and that's what brings up part of the point today. But so being able to show that animal in a good light, bring respect to the animal, I found a way to do that in photography.
Well, Chris, I could not agree with you more on this. I've been saying this for a while. Back in the old days, when the only pictures you had of your harvest was a photo that you took out of your pocket or out of your wallet and you showed your buddy, it didn't matter what it looked like because it was just you and him. These days, when you post something
Absolutely.
online, even if you think it's just your buddies who are seeing it, it's open to anybody. Anybody who stumbles across that thing, when the wrong people get a hold of it, because I've had this happen, it can blow up and backfire and make us look like buffoons. So yes, we have a responsibility in today's world, whether you want to or not, whether you want to admit it or not. We have a perception and we have a reputation that has been here for generations that we are now in charge of.
Absolutely. And these nasty images are used against us by all of, you know, the people for ethical treatment of animals. You know, they will grab these images off of social media and they will blast them to these inner city people that don't understand what happens out in the wild. And all of a sudden they gain a whole group of additional followers.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
We're adding fuel to their fire.
Hey, weren't you working on a TV show too?
I do a little bit of filming down in Texas. I've been the host of a program called Night Shooter, where we pretty much highlight the nighttime lifestyle of getting out there and controlling pig numbers, which are a huge issue down in Texas. And also, Texas has had the nighttime hunting allowance with centerfire rifles for years and years and years. And they have piles and piles of coyotes still. So it's just a cool aspect of being able to bring that nightlife to the camera and to the TV.
Hog hunting looks like a lot of fun, but I am so glad that our feral hog problem did not take off in Michigan as was feared at one time.
Oh, it is crazy the amount of, A, the pigs that you just see, and then B, the damage that they cause. I mean, it is no wonder the farmers down there are losing millions of dollars every year. Maybe it's even in the billions due to the damage that these hogs are creating.
How is coyote hunting down there? Is a coyote down there the same as up here in Michigan?
Yeah, they're pretty much the same. They're size-wise, I was interested to find that they were really close to the same size. You know, I wouldn't, because west of the Mississippi, it seems like those coyotes have a really cool coat. But down in the southern part of the country, they don't have a really clean coat that I would find like up in Nebraska. Like when I coyote hunt in Nebraska, those are absolutely beautiful coyotes, and that's why their fur, when it's prime, is such a highly desired fur in the fur trade. Obviously, our Michigan coyotes don't have a lot to desire in the fur trade. The fur prices are not very good, but Texas would be really similar. Not a great fur for the fur trade.
Well, Chris, listen, keep up the good work. I appreciate your insight into this, and I will continue to follow you online. Also, the website, ckreinermedia.com, ckreinermedia.com, and you're on social media as well.
I am. Yep. I spend a lot of time there trying to share what I know about the outdoor world and obviously bringing my success through my photography.
And I appreciate that, Chris. We'll stay in touch.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Chris
Kreiner of C. Kreiner Media, ckreinermedia.com, an avid coyote hunter with some interesting thoughts. Actually, I think I agree with everything Chris said. He talks about Humane Society and PETA and stuff. Before you go giving money to the Humane Society, don't fall into their advertising that they're taking care of the local animal shelter and saving puppies and kittens. Humane Society of the United States is not doing that. If you want to help your local animal shelter, give money to your local animal shelter, not to the Humane Society of the United States. More coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Battle Creek on WBCK 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Sandusky on WMIC 660 AM 95.3 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Iron Mountain, WMIQ 1450 AM. One question, is it Outdoor Rama or Outdoor Rama? This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination. Great people, great facilities, great location. Full-service marine shop, beautiful campground, great ship store. They've got gas there, everything you could possibly need. LinwoodBeachMarina.com. Check them out online, LinwoodBeachMarina.com. If you spend enough time at Linwood Beach, eventually, you will see Captain John Littlefield there. John is a charter captain, but he's also the owner of a school that can help you become a charter captain. Now, John taught my charter captain's class 5 years ago, and I still reach out to him today. For example, the other day, it was time to re-up my first aid certification so I could keep my captain's license. I had a question about that. I reached out to John. I think that being a charter captain, a licensed charter captain, is very cool, and I'm actually quite proud of it. If this is something that is on your bucket list, if you are a young person who's looking for a career, if you're somebody looking for a second job to earn a little extra money, if you're getting close to retirement and looking for a job to get you into retirement, it could be a fishing captain, it could be a tow captain, a sightseeing tours. John is your guy. The website, pmtcaptains.com, pmtcaptains.com, and John is on the Outdoor Magazine phone line right now. Cap, welcome back. How are you?
Good, Mike. It's always a pleasure being on here with you.
Well, the pleasure is mine. And again, I just have to thank you. I am convinced that I could not have made it through that class and passed the Coast Guard exam without your help. So thank you.
You're welcome. I can't believe it's been 5 years already.
I know. I was thinking the same thing. Maybe it's 4, but maybe it's 4. We're getting there, though. So, John, you now own the school, and you have classes across the state. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, well, I just started the school. It's been, I think we got our approval back in October, but we started offering classes last month. And we've got classes scheduled through the end of the year already. Our home base is kind of southeast Michigan, but we do offer classes in Bay City, as well as twice a year up in Cedarville. And then 6 times a year down in Florida. So we're kind of all over the place. Yeah.
Can I bet that you do the Florida classes in the wintertime?
Well, down there, it's a little bit different than up here because they don't have an off season in the winter. So their boating season is year round. So I go down there every other month all year long to do classes.
Wow. What's involved in the process, John? How tough is it to get a captain's license?
Well, the first step is to take the class. The class is a 9-day course, and in the process, we teach you all the material and administer the exam as well. And then, but in addition to the class, you'll have a physical, drug test, background check, first aid CPR. There's a handful of other Coast Guard requirements to getting your license, but we help you through every step of the way.
Actually, I feel like there's a lot of hoops to jump through, but there should be. If you're going to take people out on the water for hire, you should have some level of proficiency.
Yep, it's not terrible. It's not difficult, but there is a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of fine details that you have to pay attention to. But like I said, we help you through every step. And, you know, in your case, you took it 5 years ago, and we're more than happy to help you with the renewal process as well.
No, man, I appreciate that. So how long is the class itself?
It's a 9-day course. Every day runs from 9 a.m. until 4:30 p.m. And so usually that lines up with 8 days of instruction, and then the 9th day is pretty much just exams.
And you actually can give the Coast Guard exam, so we don't have to go down to Toledo or Cleveland or something, right?
Yep, that's correct. So, you know, getting our course approved took me almost 2 years to get that approval. But part of the difficulty was that we are going to offer the test. So the Coast Guard was very nitpicky on everything we did. But now that we're approved, we're giving the test right in-house. So it makes it easier on everybody.
Who comes to your classes? Who are you seeing mostly right now, John?
Well, it's a good blend of people. Like you said, there's the young guys that want to, you know, get a start in their career. But there's probably even more that are, you know, looking at it as part-time retirement income, or maybe they don't even know what they want to do with it yet. They just know that, you know, it'll open doors to them. And then especially in the Florida classes, I see a lot of guys that it's like a bucket list item for them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
They just have always wanted it. They might never use it, but it's just something fun that they've always wanted, and I see them in class.
Well, it's a nice thing to have in your pocket, and I got to be honest, when people call me captain, even today, I take a lot of pride in that, and I thank you, John Littlefield, for that. I'll send people to the website, pmtcaptains.com, pmtcaptains.com, and maybe you can become a charter captain with Captain John Littlefield. Thank you, John. We'll talk again.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
pmtcaptains.com is the website. There will be a class somewhere in the state at a time that fits your schedule. Go to pmtcaptains.com and check it out. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back in our second hour of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network, extreme long-range shooter Paul Phillips, one of the best in the world. He lives right here in Michigan. And then we'll continue more on this whole coyote hunting situation with Justin Tomei of MUCC. That's coming up in hour 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, the Forward Corporation, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Garber Chevrolet, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. This is first and foremost a radio show. And I think if you can, the best way to listen is on your local radio station, your local AM or FM radio station. If for some reason you can't, If your local station doesn't carry all 3 hours of the show, yes, this is a 3-hour show, or if you live in some part of our state not covered by the broadcast signal, the footprint as we call it, it's nice to know that there is a podcast version of the show available. You can hear that podcast on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. It's on my Facebook page. It's on, everywhere podcasts are. Amazon Music, Audible, Twitter now called X, LinkedIn, Google Play, iHeart, SoundCloud, Spotify, yada, yada, yada. Odyssey. It's even on YouTube. I am a big fan of podcasting. I think it's a great way to get the word out. If you have a topic you want to talk about, if you have some information, if you have some expertise, if you just want to ask questions, podcasting is a form of media, social media, that anybody can get involved in. You don't need a radio studio. You don't need a TV studio. All you need is your phone. And you can become a podcaster. And there are a lot of great podcasts out there. I also do, by the way, podcasts, in addition to the podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine radio show, for some of my broadcast partners, including Primal Outdoors, Primal Tree Stands, Offshore Tackle, and when we're done in the studio recording this week's radio show, we will record this month's Offshore Tackle podcast with the man himself, the chairman of the boards, Bruce DeShano. And I also do a podcast for Angler Quest Boats. Now, Angler Quest is kind of in transition right now as Mr. Angler Quest, Brad Dupuis, moves that operation from Apex Marine over to his own company to make Angler Quest boats. So keep an ear on the podcast for more on that. Regardless, though, of when you are hearing my voice, how you are hearing my voice, I really want to thank you. I could not do this without your support. I could not do this without you listening to the radio show or the podcast or following me on social media. As the intro to the show says, I've been doing this for more than 40 years. That's a long time. But I feel like I've got quite a few more years in me. And God willing, he has plans that I don't know of, but God willing, I will continue to be here at this microphone every week for years and years to come. So thank you for your support. I appreciate that. I always say that one of the most rewarding things about what I've been able to do over the years, other than, go cool places and do cool things, is to meet and get to know and become friends with some very, very interesting people. And right now I'm talking about Paul Phillips. I have known Paul for a long, long time. I mean, we were friends before we ever established a working relationship. And that's why I think it is so very cool that Paul has become one of the best extreme long-range shooters in the world. This is undeniable. One of the best extreme long-range shooters in the world, making documented shots of more than 4 miles. He put me behind a rifle a couple of years ago on a Wednesday Night Live, and I hit a target at a mile. I couldn't do that, but Paul helped me out. So I find him to be a very, very interesting guy. There's a lot going on in his world, and it seemed like a good time to bring him back on the show and talk more about it. So, ladies and gentlemen, the man himself when it comes to extreme long-range shooting, Paul Phillips. Paul, welcome back. How you doing, buddy?
Great. Good morning, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Paul, what you've accomplished over the years, since those early days at Coco Pelle's, you imagine what you've done now. It's just really impressive.
It's been a few years.
Well, that's one way of putting it.
Yeah.
Paul, how did you get from a young guy in the Marine Corps to where you are today?
I just keep driving. Motivation, aspiring to do the things I love to do. My dad told me when I was a teenager growing up that, if you do some work that you love to do, it's not work. That's kind of the message that he gave me, and I really tried hard, and I didn't stop. There was a lot of people that, were negative and saying, you don't want to do that, you want to do this, trying to tell me what to do, and a lot of naysayers, and I just kept driving. I'm sure it was similar to you, being on TV and radio your whole life. I mean, just aspire to do the things you love to do, and it's not work.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. When you were back in the Corps, did did you have a gift for shooting? Was it something you thought, man, I'm pretty good at this? Did you know that way back then?
Not initially. No, I was a high shooter at the range, so I knew that I was pretty good against my peers. And actually, the whole time in the military, I knew I was pretty good, but I had no idea the gift that I had until I started competing at matches. Like first couple of matches I competed at, I did really well, and people told me, you're really good. You should, consider competing. So I didn't really know until I started, going to like national events and finishing very high.
In those early matches,
the military is different than civilian competitive shooting. It's totally different.
Well, having never been in the military, unfortunately, I can only imagine. But yeah, I mean, I can get that even from the outside. But in those early competitions, what range, what distance were you shooting at, and what caliber were you shooting at the time?
Well, in the beginning, basic infantry Marines, they shoot 223 or 5.56 out to 500 yards with iron sights. That's 2, 3, and 5 is their qualification course as a basic recruit, and then infantry, that's what they use. And then I got to be in a scout sniper platoon, and we use 308s out to 1,000 yards.
And then in civilian, your civilian
in the civilian
life.
world, in the civilian world, in the beginning, shooting long range at Camp Perry, we shot high power long range with no scope out to 1,000 yards, and with a scope out to 1,000 yards. That's the U.S. rifle teams in Palma, F class. Those are the those disciplines. They shoot 1,000 yards with a scope and without a scope, metallic sights and with a scope. So and then later on in my life, getting to ELR, extreme long range. Now we're shooting with a scope out to 1 to 2 miles, and then exhibitions out to 3 and 4 miles.
Wow!
And hopefully this year we can pull the trigger on a 5 mile. We'll see if we can make that happen.
I can't even imagine the different factors involved of hitting a target at 4 and even 5 miles.
A lot of technology over the years. A lot of science and technology that's helped us. With sights and ballistics and whatnot. So yeah, it's evolving as we speak, right? It'll be interesting to see what happens in another 10, 20 years.
Well, you're not shooting at 4 and 5 miles with a 308, I'm sure.
No, we're going to be doing it with a much larger cartridge, the 416 Barrett, and now they have. I went to SHOT Show just recently, and now they have a new. A Barrett MRAD ELR 416 for the military and for civilians. And then also Cadex came out with a 14.5. I think it's a Russian round. It's like a 20 millimeter neck down to 50. And then they also have like a 14.9 Russian round. So it's getting crazy with what they're coming out with.
Yeah. I, as a casual observer of what you're doing, can't keep track of this all, but I think, I guess I thought, again, as a non-expert, I thought for a long time that a 50 cal was the extreme long range round. Was that the case? Has it just been surpassed at this point?
No, initially in 2015 when they started King of 2 Mile, 50s were pretty prevalent. That was all, the big cartridges, because it started out with the 50 cal Shoot Association. It kind of came out of that camp, so that's what a lot of people had. But now they've developed into 416 calibers and many different designs. You got the Barrett, you got the Hellfire, you got the Stroker, all different types of 416 derivatives. And then now you have also the 375 Snipe Tac, 375 Shy Tac, 375 Enabler. So all these names, 37XC, anyway. But basically, the bottom line is you have, the 50 cal bullet, the 416 bullet, and the 375 caliber bullet. That's what typically everybody's using now for these long ELR matches.
Paul, hang tight. I got to take a break here on the show. You know how this works. Stay with me if you would. We're talking with Paul Phillips, one of the best extreme long-range shooters in the world. His website, if you want to learn more about Paul and his different technologies and things he's talking about, the website is globalprecisiongroupllc.com. globalprecisiongroupllc.com. Go online, just do a search online. Go to YouTube, do a search for Paul Phillips Extreme Long Range Shooter, and you will be amazed and impressed with what this Michigan guy has been able to do, with some help from friends. And Paul's the first guy to acknowledge that. He hasn't done this on his own. He's had a lot of help from friends. But hey, isn't that how the world works, right? You get together with like-minded people, you get along with them, you all do something really cool that we couldn't have done by ourselves. Paul Phillips, globalprecisiongroupllc.com. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the show in Lansing on WILS 1320 AM. You can hear us in Houghton Lake on the Twister 92.1 WTWS. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Escanaba on WCHT 600 AM 93.5 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Matt Smith Outdoors Realtor. Matt is a longtime friend of mine. He's an expert at finding recreational properties and vacation homes, and he can help you turn your family dream into a reality. In fact, just the other day, Matt asked me to post a small fixer-up home on a central Michigan, north central Michigan lake. He said this would be perfect for a family for the getaway, and it was sold right away. So, he can help you turn your dream into a reality. Learn more online at Matt Smith Outdoors on Facebook and Instagram. And by the way, if you're looking for a new home as your primary residence, Matt can help you out there as well. That's Matt Smith Outdoors on Facebook and Instagram. I have tried to make it a point of surrounding myself and partnering with good people. My guest right now is one of those people. His name is Paul Phillips. He is one of the best extreme long-range shooters in the world. His website is globalprecisiongroupllc.com. You can also find him on social media. Paul, you were talking about going out to the SHOT Show here a few weeks ago. When you go to that show these days, I got to believe, and forgive me for saying this, but I got to believe in that shooting world, you're like a member of royalty out there.
Well, there's a lot of people that go to SHOT Show. I wouldn't say I'm royalty, but I get around a little bit.
You're so humble. You are so humble.
I'm involved in a lot of projects with a lot of companies, and I was happy to see a lot of the companies launch their products that I was involved with. So it's kind of cool to see the things I'm working on, make it to the public and become items, and it's kind of neat to be in that position.
I know you work on a lot of stuff behind the scenes for people we can't talk about, but anything going on that we can talk about? Anything you're working on?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so I just wrote down a few items that are new in the industry that people can buy. They'll probably be buying this summer. It should launch to the public, but you got the new Night Force spotting scope at 6-36 with the reticle. That's all brand new. You got the new mini radars, the mini Lab Radar LX and the Garmin. Those are new. Just throw them in your shooting bag, and it's like a radar, new technology, pretty awesome stuff for pretty reasonably priced. The new Manor stocks come out with the Pro Hunter and the Long Range Hunter. You'll be seeing those around me or in the public here shortly. It's a new lightweight version for hunters. Obviously, GSL Technology's got the 350 Legend and the 450 Bushmaster suppressors. Accutech bipods, I'm working with them. Came out with a new Hydropod and the P skis. P stands for Paul. So I was involved with those products. Those are kind of neat. And again, once we do a segment or get together at the range, I'll show you this stuff. And obviously, Barrett launched the MRAD ELR, which is huge for the military and for extreme long-range shooters. And then Long Shot Cameras, my partner and my teammate, come up with a new Ranger compact camera for less than $400, and people can use that out to 1,000 yards for less than $400. I mean, it's pretty crazy. Hook up to your phone and So there's some new products out there that are really kind of neat stuff that people can use. So those are some new highlight items.
A dumb question. Why would a shooter want a portable radar unit?
Oh, man. It's everything with ballistics, right? You need your velocities. And
it's a chronograph. It's a chronograph.
Yeah, it's a chronograph.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, it's a little mini chronograph that uses radar, and the size of an orange, pretty much. You just throw it in your bag, and they become way more dependable, more repeatable. And when you're doing low development, like if we were to take your 350 Legend, your Brenton 350 Legend, and go out and get a velocity of your bullet, it would only take us 5 minutes with this little mini radar. Then we could program that velocity into a ballistic calculator, and then you'd be able to know where to aim at any distance, right? It'd be super easy and quick. That's how we use those things.
So then do I need a multi-reticle scope, or do I just do like a holdover, like the old-fashioned way of doing it?
You could do both. You could do the reticle that has hash marks and gives you measurements in there, internal measurements. Or you could just use your scope knob to dial elevation and windage. Or you could do holdover. Obviously, the holdover is probably the least accurate. And then you with your reticle and then with the scope adjustments. So it just depends on kind of where you're at with your budget and what you feel comfortable spending on your rifle.
So what you folks are doing on the extreme long-range ranges, is trickling down to us as hunters.
It sure is. Everything, all the products, stocks, scopes, suppressors, bipods, rifles, everything. Yeah, absolutely. And it's going into the military too, Mike. A lot of this stuff, the civilians and, some of this stuff never makes it either. A lot of the prototype stuff we're working on, it never ends up making it, right? But some stuff does. So, a lot of these company owners that own these companies, they're taking a lot of risks, spending money to do, testing, evaluating, and research and development on this stuff. But not all that makes it.
I find it interesting that the world of extreme long-range shooting, again, looking at it from the outside, seems to be growing. You and a handful of your buddies were like the Lone Ranger out there for a while, and now I see a lot of people getting involved. Is that good for the activity, for the sport of extreme long-range shooting?
I think so. Yeah, I think more is better. And, I was in Saudi, Poland, Chile this year, last year. This year I'm looking at going to France, King of 2 Mile, France in March, next month already. And then South Africa in May, possibly Canada, Chile, and Saudi again. So, it's growing. It's really growing fast. I think there's like 10 or 15 different countries now that are holding these events, and we're trying to unite and come up with a better organized venue so that more people can get involved. So 22 ELR and maybe different classes.
You going to have a chance to do any hunting when you're in South Africa?
I plan to, yes. Yeah, that's a bucket list item. Have you ever been there?
I have. I've been there a couple times, but I'm just thinking that my experience is going to be so different from yours because I was there and I was bow hunting, so everything was up close, in your face, over water holes and such. With you, Paul Phillips, there, I'm thinking if the critter's within a half mile, he's not safe because you're going to snipe him.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to do a bow hunt with a dangerous game. That might be a little too dangerous.
I didn't do any dangerous game. It was all plains animals, plains game, so I can't say that.
I would imagine that would be super awesome with being up close and personal with nature and the animals, right? Different type of feel.
It is, and this is a question I've never asked you, but we're going to veer off this direction now because you kind of bring it up. One of the criticisms I've seen of some of these hunting TV shows that, they're taking animals at, say, 1,000 yards or whatever, 600, whatever, long distance, not for you, but for most of us, long distance. Mm-hmm. They say, you know what, that animal didn't have a chance. They say it's somehow unethical to shoot an animal at that distance. I don't think that's true, but I'm curious your perspective on that.
It's a great question, Mike. I talk to a lot of people often about this, and here's my thing. If you're more skilled in being able to understand how to utilize the rifle and the caliber and the ballistics and the wind, and you can maintain a level of accuracy where you can make first-run impacts at whatever distance you can do that, I would much rather have somebody that understands that than maybe somebody that doesn't know how to zero the rifle at 100 yards, doesn't understand the ammunition, doesn't understand the capabilities. I mean, I've seen some across the ranges across the country, some novice people that don't understand anything, and they're more dangerous, I think, in the woods than a person that's skilled. Does that make sense?
No, it does. It does. And you mentioned first round impact. That's really, well, in either a military situation or certainly a hunting situation, the first round, that's the one that counts, right? The first shot.
Absolutely. And for safety too, right? But I mean, sometimes in situations in hunting, we've all been there, right? We've jerked a shot or whatever. And I don't know if you've ever done this, but I have in bow hunting and rifle. Both seasons. I've hit trees before, branches, and I followed up with a nice shot and was able to take the animal. But we strive for the first run impact for safety and, a good, clean, ethical shot on a deer or animal. That's our goal, right? But the more we know, it'll increase our statistics of have a better percentage of obtaining that animal.
In a follow-up, just curious, when you do your demonstration shooting or your extreme long range, 4 miles, now looking at 5, are you walking that shot in? You don't try to hit that cold bore first. I mean, you try to, but how often does that happen?
Yeah, very, very little. Yeah, the exhibition shooting that's 3 miles and beyond, that's kind of like artillery. You make a shot, you see the impact in the sand, and you have a forward observer say, okay, you were low and right. So then you adjust up and left, and then maybe even sometimes shooting 3 shots. That's a total exhibition shot that we use for learning about everything, right? Ballistics and all of our components and gear and making things better. But to answer your question for cold bore shots, the world record is around 1.5 miles right now, 3 for 3 cold bore, which means there's no practice shots. There's no practicing before you do it. So now ELR shooters are, 1 mile to 1.5 miles with first rounds on target. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, well.
So it really, I mean, if you're going hunting and you're only shooting out to 500 yards, that's nothing, right? I mean, even out to a mile now.
For you.
Yeah. Well,
Paul,
I mean, look
hey,
at
listen,
what
Paul.
you did, right?
I know, but you had that gun ready to go. All I did was lay behind it and breathe and pull a trigger. Paul, I got to let you go. It's always a pleasure. It is always fascinating to talk with you. I will follow your adventures online. ELS Shooter on social media. Good luck on the 5 mile shot, and I'm sure you and I will be talking again soon, buddy.
Thanks, Mike. Have a good day.
You as well. Paul Phillips, Global Precision Group, LLC.com. We're going to go back to the coyote issue with Justin Tomei of MUCC after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Carroll on WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. You can hear us in Holland on WHTC 1450 AM 99.7 FM. And you can hear us in Manistee on WTIQ 1490 AM 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Versa Skins. Just change your skin for the season you're in. Why buy a bunch of different sets of hunting clothes when you can buy one good quality set and snap on and zip on an outer shell with a different camo pattern? It's genius. And if you're looking for big sizes, 4, 5, 6X, VersaSkins can help you out there as well. The website, VersaSkins.com, VersaSkins.com, family-owned, Michigan-based. How can you go wrong with that? VersaSkins.com. Earlier in the show this week, I spent a lot of time talking about a situation here in Michigan with a plan to eliminate year-round coyote hunting. There are a lot of pieces to this, and a lot of parts of this make me nervous. Whenever I have questions about things like this, my go-to place is MUCC, Michigan United Conservation Clubs. I am a member of that of MUCC. I support them. And this time around, I wanted to call in Justin Tomei, who is the policy director, among other hats he wears at MUCC, to talk more about this, and he has graciously agreed. Justin, welcome back. How are you?
A little under the weather, Mike. Otherwise, I'm doing pretty well.
Well, you sound good. Your voice sounds good, though. I'm glad you're feeling better, and I appreciate your time this week. And Justin, set the stage for me here. I told the story as I understand it earlier in the show, but let's get your perspective as an expert in this. What's going on right now?
Well, so this all started around Labor Day. MUCC is a member of the Fur Taker User Group, similar to the Bear Forum, where all the fur taker user groups get together and kind of discuss proposed regulations, float new ideas. The meeting is open to the public, but it is an opportunity to kind of have frank and open conversations with the department and with each other. And this proposal, the first I heard of it, was at that meeting, where, as it was framed to me, the idea was we needed to close the coyote season similar to how it was pre-2016 in an effort to kind of stave off potential loss of control, loss of management control, by maybe legislation or a ballot initiative or something else. The vote was not unanimous. MUCC was one of the groups that opposed that regulation change at that fur taker user group, but a majority of the groups did support it, and it has made its way to the NRC up for information tomorrow. And it would close the coyote season, or I guess as they frame it, the coyote season would be from July 15th through April 15th.
Just a little programming note. This NRC meeting, as folks are hearing the radio show, was last Thursday, but they're not scheduled to actually take a vote until the March meeting. Is that correct?
The NRC meeting is tomorrow, actually.
It's tomorrow, but Justin, keep in mind, people are listening to the show this weekend, so the meeting has already happened. But the vote to take action is not until the March meeting, correct, or no?
Yes, the March meeting will be March 14th, I believe. Yep, March 14th is when it will be up for action at its earliest date. So you have about a month to contact commissioners and, share your thoughts on it. As always, I encourage everybody to be polite. The deer changes this past summer got a little out of control sometimes. I know some commissioners got some very not nice messages, and that we don't want to come across that way. So,
No. When you say there was concern about losing management control by the NRC, by the legislature, or a ballot initiative, tell me more about that. What's the thinking there?
Again, I can only say as it was framed to me, but it was talked about that a legislator was poking around, asking about a few different species that we hunt, what we do to protect those species. In a lot of instances, we have very limited methods of take or very limited seasons, bag limits. But with coyotes, our season is extremely liberal. It is year-round on public and private land. And so their idea was that if we closed it, we could say, we're protecting coyotes during this season when, they have pups or whatever. The other side of that, obviously, is that this year-round season, when it switched in 2016, has not had any biological impact on the species.
And DNR even admits this. There's no biological reason for doing this. So my question would be, if there's no biological reason, what happened to Proposal G in sound scientific wildlife management?
That is our concern. That is our argument as well. That is what I've been spending my week talking with commissioners about. I will continue to spend the next month talking with them about it. MUCC was founded on the belief that these scientific decisions should be made independent from political pressures. and that if there is no biological justification, there should not be a restriction of opportunity. I will say at the Bear Forum in 2022, the DNR came to the group, laid out all this data, graphs, charts, and asked at the end of that to say we need to lower some bear tags in some of these units because we're not quite achieving our management goals or we're exceeding harvest or whatever the case may be. And that group was the first group to do it. So when we're provided with significant biological justification, we're going to be on board with the opportunity restrictions because it's necessary to protect the resource.
I hear you, Justin. You can hear the music. I got to take a break. I know you can stick around for another segment. We're talking with Justin Tomei of MUCC, the website MUCC.org. That's MUCC.org. After the break, more on the coyote issue and maybe even a quick wolf topic will come up in the Ask Avery segment in this week's Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Manistee on WMLQ 97.7 FM, and you can hear us in Traverse City on WTCM 580 AM. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by the good folks at Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. The way the Ask Avery segment works, this is your chance to get involved in the content of the show. Send me an email, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. This time, the Ask Avery question, the Ask Avery segment is Avery asking questions of Justin Tomei of MUCC. Justin, a quick follow-up on the coyote issue. Who initiated this? This is not from the anti-hunters, right?
Correct. The department is also neutral on the proposal, and they are adamant that it was stakeholder groups that asked for the regulation to be brought to the fur taker user group. So not MUCC, but other stakeholder groups, and the department can elaborate more on that. I don't know for certain who, but they said it is stakeholder groups that were asking for this.
Sportsmen's groups.
Yes.
They
just see it as a PR win.
I wish we had 3 hours to talk on this right here. It is, and I support the groups. I always have in the past. I have much support for trappers and dog hunters. A lot of support. But when you start saying, okay, well, we want to give up a fellow group of hunters recreational opportunities to protect what we're doing in the eyes of the public, that makes me nervous.
It's a concern that we share as well. And, these people are still our friends and allies, and
absolutely.
I'm sitting with them in other meetings throughout the week, and we do a lot of good work together. They've defended Proposal G for decades and will continue to do so after this. I will say, though, that actually this has gotten the concern of some other groups, even some fishing groups, kind of share our concerns that we have here. And we probably won't publicly take a stance because it's outside their purview, but it's kind of an academic anomaly, right? Just to view it from a mile-up perspective. It's really a strange place to be.
And for me, too.
And then, as you mentioned before the break, the wolf thing is on top of it.
Well, before we get to wolf, real quick, what do you want people to do?
Yeah.
A call to action. What do you want people to do in regards to the coyote issue?
My best advice would be to reach out to your commissioners. Tell them, what you think about the issue, why you think that this is important, and maintain that scientific management is how we've done things in this state for, almost 30 years, and it's how we should continue to do things going forward.
Gotcha.
I think that is the best. We have a high ground there when we can stick to the science, and I think that that's our best hope.
All right, very well stated. Now let's talk about wolves. You say that there's a bill to remove wolves as a game species and remove the NRC authority to name game species. What is this all about?
So this first came onto our radar in October. The anti-hunting groups, HSE West and a few others, were shopping around a bill. They were trying to get sponsors. And It does a little bit more than that. So from an email that we got from them, what it says is it removes wolves from the list of game species, restores the state legislature's sole and independent authority to designate game species, repeal the current statute on an open season on wolves, and add a restitution penalty for poaching wolves. As of this minute, the bill has not dropped yet. It was supposed to drop yesterday. It may not even drop this week now. But that bill will be coming soon to the legislature.
I want to make sure I understand this. This would take the authority for a wolf hunt out of the NRC's hands and put it in the legislature's hands, correct?
Correct. And it would affect other species that we can't currently hunt, like sandhill cranes, because it would remove the commission's authority to designate them as a game species in the future.
Well,
it's a hill we die on.
Yeah. Yes, that's a good way of putting it. Man, oh man. Justin, you got your hands full right now.
Luckily, I see this particular bill as pretty toxic in the short term. I don't think that there's much chance that it's going to move, at least prior to the election. But it just shows that we can never kind of rest on our laurels and take anything for granted. We need to be watching this daily. And when something like this does happen, you need to rely on your local conservation clubs or MUCC for your news and the ways that you can get involved to help out.
Justin, you and everybody at MUCC is going to be keeping an eye on both these issues and more, right?
Absolutely. That's what I do every day.
All right, I appreciate that. Also, just a real quick note, and this is a few months away, but the golf outing, the Mike Avery Outdoor Magazine golf outing, is a go. It's going to happen Monday, July 29th at the West Branch Country Club, and all the proceeds are going to go to MUCC's youth camp.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm a former golfer and enjoy hanging out and doing good things for conservation for the kids.
Well, if we can play some golf, smoke some cigars, and raise money for a good cause, I see no downside to it.
Sounds like a good day to me.
All right, Justin, keep up the good work. We'll talk again. Justin Tomei of MUCC, MUCC.org, MUCC.org. Thank you to the folks at Security Credit Union for making each week's Ask Avery segment possible. And if you would like to be involved in this golf outing as a sponsor, as a supporter, a whole sponsor, whatever it is, any way you want to help out, send me an email to Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. That's Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I will put you in touch with the right people, and we will make this thing a big success. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, we're talking some fishing with Mark Romanack of Fishing 411, and of course, Dixie Dave Minar here on Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, the Forward Corporation, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Garber Chevrolet, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. How are you, my friends? How are things in your world? Have you had a chance to get out and do anything fun? It's a weird time right now, isn't it? Because the calendar says winter, Mother Nature's making noise like, dead skunks in the road. What can be next? The return of red-winged blackbirds? And don't tell me about robins coming back because, some goofy robins stay here all year long, so that's not really a true sign of spring. And why am I even talking about spring when it's the middle of February? I know it's kind of crazy, isn't it? I was saying earlier in the show that throughout my career, I have been blessed to work with some top-notch people. people at the pinnacle of their career, people who, and I don't care what it is. In my case, it's going to be the outdoor world, right? But I have much respect for people, whatever world you live in, for people who have taken it to the next level, for people who excel in that area, for people who are not who are not afraid to share that knowledge and expertise and insight with others. And of course, in my world, that becomes hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping. I love to fish. I love to troll. My main fishing thing these days is trolling for Saginaw Bay walleye. I can't wait for that season. I can't wait to get the Angler Quest back out there. And I do okay. I catch some fish. But you know what? Anybody who goes out in Saginaw Bay these days is going to catch some fish. There are days, though, when I sit back and I go, what's maybe not catching as many or whatever. And I think, what am I doing wrong? What has changed? What do I not understand here? Some days I can pick up on that. Most days I can't. And that's when I really start to have envy for people like Mark Romanack of Fishing 411. Mark is one of those guys who can get on a body of water and dissect it. He knows what he's looking for. He knows what the fish are telling him. And that's why he's so successful in all of his ventures, his adventures. You can see him at Fishing 411 TV, fishing411.net. And I always look forward to having him here on the Outdoor Magazine radio show as well. It's been a while, so I invited him back, and he has graciously agreed. And here he is. Mark Romanack, welcome back to the show, buddy.
Mike, it's always my pleasure. I always look forward to visiting with you, sir.
Well, I feel the same way, and it is an interesting time right now, isn't it? I mean, did you even get much ice fishing in this year?
I got zero, and ironically, Jake got so frustrated, he loaded up his rig and he went all the way to Rainy Lake up in Ontario just so we could find some ice. So Jake's going to get some strokes in, but right now it's looking like I'm not going to get any ice fishing strokes in.
I did see in one of Jake's, I think it was an Instagram picture of him sitting in front of this. I mean, he made an Argo look small.
Yeah. The outfitter that he's working with up there, they have these machines that are, they're like Argos on steroids. And they use it to access those wilderness areas. In some cases, they have to travel 30 or 40 miles to get to the best fishing. So in doing so, you have to have, safe vehicles. You can't just do it with traditional vehicles. And especially a year like this where there's little or no ice, you're not taking trucks out there this year.
The concept of wilderness fishing and have to go someplace remote and a long way from people to find good fish, I mean, that's an adventure. That is appealing. That's a lot of fun. But here in Michigan, in a lot of places, we have just the opposite, don't we, Mark? I mean, we have urban fisheries surrounded by industry and people that have world-class fisheries.
Honestly, we have some of the best urban fisheries, and I'm still continuously amazed when I look at the population of Michigan. We're somewhere around 9 million people, and there's seemingly people everywhere, but we have these wonderful fisheries, despite the fact that there are a lot of people using them, seemingly more every single year.
Yeah, I'm thinking of, there's so many Detroit River fishing, which that fishery is going to take off here sooner than later.
Yeah, we'll see what happens here because, everybody thinks that because we have a mild winter that we're necessarily going to have an early spring. That's not necessarily the case. We could still have some cold weather. We could still have some ice to come. So I look at it as more of a traditional timing thing. For me, the Detroit River really starts to get into its main stride somewhere between the 7th and the 20th of April. You can catch fish earlier than that, absolutely. No question about it. But the best bite almost always falls in that window, and it has to do with water temperature, photo period, the activity level of the fish as far as where they're at in their spawn. So there's things to consider. I'm not going to be that guy that's on the Detroit River in February. That's not happening.
Well, you're breaking my heart because I got such a bad case of spring fever here. And I was actually, when I made that comment, I was thinking that you guys were down there in the fall taking advantage of the fishery then, which was a little bit unusual, wasn't it?
Yeah, that fall fishery is a bit of a secret, Mike. I mean, it's been going on for a lot of years, but the locals have kind of kept it, on the QT. I've known about it for a long time. To be honest with you, that was the first time I'd ever fished the Detroit River in the fall. I fished the St. Clair River in the fall a number of times. But I was pleasantly surprised. Not only did we catch a bunch of fish, we got an excellent television show out of it. It was just a different kind of bite than you experience in the spring. The fish are more aggressive. I guess you could describe it as being more hungry. They're not preoccupied with spawning. They're preoccupied with eating. And so the strikes were aggressive and numerous. We had a lot of fun, and the average fish was pretty good. I mean, probably about a 3-pound average, which that's not bad walleye fishing anywhere on the river.
No, and, here in Michigan, we're blessed in that we look at a 3-pound average as a good day on the water, and you go other places in the country, and they go, that's phenomenal. That's the best we've ever seen.
Well, we are a little bit spoiled in that regard. There's no question about it. But what I saw in the fall on the Detroit River was very impressive to me. It's something that I'm going to try and make time for. And I say try to make time for. It's really difficult for us in the fall. We get, stretched in a lot of different directions. As you know, we like to hunt deer. We like to hunt ducks. It really becomes difficult to find enough time to do everything. And I'm sure you've suffered from the same situation.
Oh, yeah. Maybe this is an unfair question. What's the best fishery you've ever been on?
As far as for just consistent numbers, where most anybody that goes out there is going to be successful. I don't know that Lake Erie can be beat. The numbers of fish, the fact that we can catch them just about year around now. The only time that you typically are not fishing on Erie these days is if they've got sheet ice and you can't get a boat in. Doesn't matter how cold the water gets. We've seen it where these guys are catching these fish just as good in February as they catch them in May. So, I have to go back and say that is absolutely at the pinnacle. But there's other bodies of water out there that are pretty darn exceptional. Lake of the Woods, for example, Rainy Lake, where Jake is at right now. Man, those are impressive fisheries as well for numbers and size. Green Bay is a real sleeper. It's coming on an amazing fishery as well. So we're lucky that right now in my lifetime, these are some of the best fishing that I've ever seen. It's gotten nothing but better in my lifetime.
I feel like in some ways we are living in the good old days of fishing right now.
Oh boy, I would have to say so. And even going back in the day when Saginaw Bay was first getting a reputation for being a great destination fishery, it was good. The size of the fish we caught was impressive, but the numbers are not even close to what we catch now. So, our average size fish in Saginaw Bay might be a little smaller now than it was 20 years ago, but that's easily made up for by the fact that limits are a daily occurrence.
Are you a walleye guy, Mark? Is that what you consider yourself to be?
Yeah, I guess deep down, if I could only fish for one species, it would be walleye. That's where I cut my teeth. That's where I feel I have the most confidence, and I feel the most sense of satisfaction when a trip goes well. I feel like that I can take a not so good trip and turn it into a better trip through experience. I don't know that I necessarily can make that happen all the time with trout and salmon and other species because I don't have as much experience there as I have with walleye.
So when you pull up to the boat launch to shoot a Fishing 411 TV show, what is your mindset? Do you approach that adventure from the perspective of, hey, this is going to be a good trip. We are going to catch fish. Do you ever pull up there and go, boy, I just don't know. I don't have a good feeling today?
I wouldn't be on the water if I didn't have a good feeling. And you probably know this better than anybody, but for some of your viewers that may not realize, it's expensive to film a television show. We've got a crew, believe it or not. Those guys want to be fed. They want to stay in motels. They want to be paid. We're burning up gas. If we don't catch fish and we're running all over Hell's Green Acres and not catching anything, we're just eating up money. And so we do a lot of research ahead of time to make sure the conditions are setting up to be conducive. And the average fisherman can do the same now. I mean, this is not magic. We're using the internet. We're watching social media. We're using our contacts, people that we know that are on the water. Glean as much information as possible to try to make an educated decision. Is today a good day to go fishing, or should I be staying home and mowing the lawn?
Gotcha. Hang tight, Mark. We got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. We're talking with Mark Romanack of Fishing 411, the website fishing411.net, fishing411.net. He is an icon in the fishing world here in the great state of Michigan, fishing411.net. More after the break. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS. You can hear us in Muskegon on WKBZ 1090 AM, and you can hear us north of the bridge in Newberry, WNBY 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Premier Maritime Training. If you've ever wanted to get your captain's license, I think this is your best bet. In fact, Captain John Littlefield was with me in the first hour of this week's show. If you're interested in that, go back and listen to the podcast version of the first hour. John taught my class, and he's the guy I think is who I really thank for helping me to get my charter captain's license. He can help you as well. He has a series of classes across the state. And I'm sure you can find one that'll fit your schedule. Check out the website, pmtcaptains.com. That's pmtcaptains.com. You know, this is something you've been thinking about, right? Kind of a dream, become a charter captain? Well, maybe now's the time you want to take care of it. Go to the website, pmtcaptains.com. Tell them the big guy sent you. Talking now with Mark Romanack of Fishing 411, fishing411.net. Mark, during the break, I'm here in the studio with Jonathan Dent. He had an interesting question. He said, where does the name Fishing 411 come from? Now, I know because I kind of suggested that you call it precision trolling or precision angling. And you said at the time, look, I don't want to be pigeonholed into that. But 411 actually came up from the boys, right?
Yeah, my oldest son, Zachary, came up with the name. And it's kind of ironic because Zach's a great outdoorsman, but he doesn't really enjoy fishing all that much. He prefers hunting and shooting. But, you know, the idea was a solid idea. Fishing 411, fishing information. And that's essentially what the program is all about. And I think it confuses a few people, but I think the majority of people kind of figured out that, oh yeah, that's what the show is about. It's about sharing information. And so the name has stuck. I think it was a very good choice, and people seem to get it.
Yeah, I agree. It was a much better choice than precision trolling or precision angling. When I call you an icon in the fishing industry, what do you accept that? How does that feel?
I don't know. That's an interesting question, Mike. Because, geez, I don't know how to respond to that. I mean, the other day I'm in the grocery store, I get recognized by somebody. You know, I had to do an eye exam. I stopped at the place where I had my eyes checked and an eye exam, and next thing I know, I'm doing a fishing seminar in the lobby. It is what it is. I mean, it's great. I really appreciate the fact that so many people watch the show and follow what we do and have faith in what we say. But I'm very humbled by the whole thing as well, because it wasn't always that way. But I can always tell when it happens. Mary, my wife, is with me. I'll look over at her, and she'll look at me, and she gives me that look and kind of just rolls her eyes like, oh, dang, here we go.
Well, I
really like it.
You have, you know, obviously, in my opinion, you've mastered all forms of fishing. But when it comes to trolling, man, you are the man. Your precision trolling now app is I'm still calling it the Troller's Bible. After all these years, it continues to be one of the main sources of information for anybody who trolls.
Well, I think anyone who is serious about trolling quickly comes to the conclusion that if you don't know where your gear is in the water column, you're fishing blind. And that's essentially what precision trolling does, is it allows you to figure out where your lures are in the water column. And today with modern sonar, I mean, fish can't hide. So if you're marking fish and you know what depth of water they're in, and you have the technology to put your lures at those depths, guess what? You're going to be successful. And I think everybody that gives precision trolling a serious look comes to that conclusion very quickly. And it's not expensive. It's a technology that works day in and day out.
You talk about today's sonar technology, live scope, forward-facing sonar. Is there a use for that in a trolling situation?
There is. This is going to be an interesting year for us because we're going to be using that technology more and more to try to figure out better alternatives for trolling. In the past, we've been limited with forward-facing sonar, and the limit is that you can only see so far. So in a trolling situation, let's say you're looking out the front of the boat, typically you're not marking fish unless you're relatively close to them, within about 60 feet or so. So that doesn't give you much time to turn the boat and try to make the boat run over those fish, if you get my drift. And so it's become, forward-facing sonar has become very popular with casters, because with casters, obviously you can manipulate the boat and put the boat right where it needs to be to have the right presentation to catch those fish. So now as forward-facing sonar is getting a longer reach, in other words, the resolution is higher and you can see further, I think it is going to impact on trolling. And we kind of attached ourselves this year that we're going to look at that seriously and see if we can't help people better understand that technology.
Well, I'll be anxiously following that. I'm very curious about that. Also, I'm curious, and I congratulate you on your partnerships with different companies over the year. Of course, our mutual friends, the DeShanos at Offshore, but you've also come out now with a new line of trolling rods, new line of I think trolling. Are there reels out there, and of course those crankbaits or something else too?
Well, yeah. So it's actually been an amazing year. We've had long-term relationships with a lot of brands, and some of those brands are now stretching out and asking us to do more for them. And EvoClaw is a good example of that. EvoClaw came to us and asked us if we would do a trolling rod line for them. And so last year, Jake and I prototyped what's called the Starfire X's. And if you're familiar with Starfire, you probably have fished them. Those yellow rods that EvoClaw has produced for decades. Mm-hmm. I think they came out in the mid-'70s. It's a trade-off to that. Basically, it's a modern version of those rods, affordable trolling rods with more modern actions for modern trolling techniques, like inline planer boards. Back in the 70s, we didn't have inline planer boards. So obviously, they didn't have a rod for it back in the day. But those rods are on the market now, widely available. They're selling extremely well. We're talking about, $39 rod to $55 rod. Those are affordable rods the guy can actually afford to outfit his boat with them.
Well, that's good news, because this is the spring that I need to completely re-outfit my rods and reels, and I'm looking at those. Are they still yellow, Mark?
No, they're not yellow. We didn't want that. Quite honestly, nothing goes with yellow. It's a black color to get my drift. No, they're more of a charcoal blackish color.
Okay, perfect.
But the actions are considerably different too. Of course, they're designed for specific things like inline boards, for bottom bouncers, dipsy divers, that kind of stuff.
Okay, so does Jay's carry these?
Oh yeah, Jay's has got them. In fact, they got a really good supply of them right now. So you can see them at Jay's. And while you're there, you might want to check out the new crankbaits. Those are made by Bill Lewis. They're called the Precise Walleye Crank and also the Precise Walleye Crank Light, or PWC or PWC Light for short.
On those rods, okay, so I'm trolling Saginaw Bay with OR-12 offshore inline planers. What do I want? A 7.5-foot medium light? What should I be looking for?
Well, you're an interesting guy, Mike, because you're very tall. And so you could get away very nicely with an 8.5-foot rod, whereas the average person, I'm going to direct them to go to a 7.5-foot rod. And the reason for that is when you're using an inline board, you're constantly reaching up to the rod tip. You're grabbing the line. You put the line in the board, and then you put the board in the water. And so shorter guys struggle to reach the rod tip on an 8.5-foot rod. Therefore, what they end up doing is they choke up. And as they're choking up, it's very easy for someone else in the boat to inadvertently step on the rod, potentially breaking the rod. So longer rods are cumbersome in the boat for most people. You, on the other hand, being as tall as you are, you probably get along real nicely with an 8.6.
Well, I could, also, but I fish with a lot of vertically challenged people, so I'm going to stick with the 7.5s. What action?
The action on the inline planer board rods is what they call a moderate to slow action. And essentially what it is, it's softer maybe than what you've seen in the past. I'll give you an action that maybe you're familiar with. You remember I'm drawing a blank here. My age is catching up to me, Mike. Here.
I hear you. No, I hear you.
But to go back to the moderate action, it's a little softer than what a typical trolling rod would be. Most trolling rods are a little bit too stiff in the tip. And what ends up happening is you put a lot of pressure on the fish once that fish is hooked. And I'm looking for a rod that's got enough backbone to handle the weight of the board and the lure, maybe some snap weights. But when that fish is hooked, I want that rod to bend in a parabolic bend. I want it to have a slow to moderate action. And that's exactly what the Starfire X's are doing. So it's a little slower action rod than maybe the typical trolling rod that's out there.
So how are they designated, though? Would I look for a 7.5-foot inline planer board rod? And what does it say on the rod itself? Does it say medium slow?
the beauty of it, Mike, is that these rods all have hand tags, and these hanging tags basically tell you what the rod is for. So when you pick the rod out of the rack, you're going to look at it, and it's going to say 7'6" inline planer board rod, or it's going to say 8'6" bottom bouncer rod, or it's going to say 9-foot Dipsy diver rod. You can't make a mistake.
Perfect.
The hand cards, the hanging cards there, tell you exactly what the rod is for and what the best application is.
Perfect. Let's talk more about those baits. That must have been an interesting process to be involved in that project.
Interesting and time consuming. I was a little bit surprised. I didn't, had never designed a crankbait before. This was Jake's and my first opportunity with the PWC. It took us about 2.5 years to get it right. And about 9 different prototypes. In other words, 9 different failures, if you get my drift, before we finally got the bait to the point where it was doing what we wanted it to do. So all of that takes time, because every time you want to make a change, it has to go back to the factory. They have to build you all new prototypes, and then they have to send those back to me, and then we have to find time to get them on the water. It took a long time to get them right, but I'm very proud of the fact that we got it right.
So you're happy with them?
I'm very happy with them. The PWC, in my opinion, is a stellar bait for cold water trolling. 50-degree water and below, it has exactly the action we're looking for slow trolling speeds. The PWC Light is smaller, has a more aggressive action. It's a bait that was designed more with Saginaw Bay in mind than Lake Erie. It's a lure that has, it's a lure that has more flash to it. And a much wider wobble. So I consider it to be a lure that's ideally suited for faster trolling situations.
Well, I'm going to have a few of those in my box as I head out this summer. Hey, Mark, can I offer you the coveted third segment? Can you stick around?
Yeah, if I can get this frog out.
I'll give you the commercial to get the frog out of your throat. We're talking with Mark Romanack of Fishing 411, fishing411.net, fishing411.net. Also, be sure to check out the Precision Trolling app. If you are a troller, like Mark said, how do you, if you don't know how deep your baits are running, how can you target the fish that you're marking? I use it probably every time I go out, except for the ones, the dive curves that I have memorized. Precision Trolling. Anyway, the website, fishing411.net, fishing411.net. We will take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, wrap up our conversation with Mark Romanack. And then, of course, we will wrap it all up with wild game chef Dixie Dave Minar. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Tawas on WIOS, 1480 AM, 106.9 FM. You can hear us in St. Joe on WSJM, 94.9 FM. And you can hear us in Saginaw on WSGW, 790 AM, 100.5 FM. I'm in the studios of WSGW right now. I'm here with Jonathan Dent, doing a great job. John, I appreciate it very much. Once John's got a few more years under his belt, he will see the throngs of adoring fans that line up for Charlie Rood, but they're not. John, you just got to put your time in, buddy. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Reader Landscaping. Reader can take care of your lawn and property because it's your nature and our nurture. Let Reader create an outdoor getaway in your backyard. The website, readerlandscaping.com, readerlandscaping.com. Probably not going to look for Reader to do much more snow removal for you this year. Maybe not. But it's now the time to get on their list for the springtime projects. In fact, I talked to the guys just the other day, and they're going to come over and do some late winter pruning of my trees to get them all shaped up. They do a great job. Very knowledgeable people. Again, the website, readerlandscaping.com. Speaking of knowledgeable, I'm talking right now with Mark Romanack of Fishing 411, fishing411.net. Mark, since you've burst my bubble and you're telling me I can't go to the Detroit River anytime soon, if I was looking for a good fishery in Michigan right now, given, the conditions that we've got, where would you send me?
Well, interestingly enough, I would say southern Lake Michigan, the coho fishery, that will get going quicker than usual this year because, of course, cohos, they bite well in cold water. They're an active, aggressive fish. I'm already getting good reports on coho in southern Lake Michigan. And in the years where we've had mild winters, and this is not the first mild winter we've had here in Michigan, that it tends to hold up very well. That Southern Lake Michigan is going to be a good bet for cohos. There'll be some lake trout in the mix, may even be a brown trout or two. But if I was looking to go, knock off the dust, so to speak, and get my boat in the water this weekend, I'd be looking seriously at Michigan City and that area of Southern Lake Michigan.
And that springtime coho fishery is just a riot. It's like a kamikaze drill when you run into a school of them.
When you hit them, boy, you're going to know you're in them in a hurry. That's for sure. That's what I like about cohos is they're not picky. I mean, when you find them, you're going to catch them. You're probably going to catch them on a multitude of presentations. In the springtime, I tend to stick pretty much with plugs, although you can catch them on spoons as well. I try to keep my speeds a little bit modest, probably nothing any faster than 2.5 miles an hour, because that water is cold. I mean, we're still talking about 36, 37, 38 degree water. So you do have to have a relatively slow presentation. And but if you find them, you're going to catch them. And boy, you talk about a good eating fish. Nothing tastes better than spring cohos.
I want to go back to trolling nuances here before we let you go. Does trolling speed, what does it affect? It affects the action of the bait, but does it affect the depth?
Doesn't affect the depth in most instances. And I got to quantify that statement a little bit, Mike, because if you just take a floating diving crankbait and you put it out behind the boat 50 feet and you troll it, it's going to go to the same depth at a wide variety of speeds. Because, in a floating crankbait situation, trolling speed does not influence the diving depth significantly. Now, let's change that up a little bit. It's very popular here in the Great Lakes for guys to use snap weights, a very popular offshore tackle product. And they put a snap weight on the line. Of course, when you put a weight on the line, now all of a sudden a lure that used to float is now a lure that's sinking. And in that situation, speeding up or slowing down makes a huge difference in where the bait is going to run in the water column. So I just like to remind people that anything that sinks is going to be speed dependent, and anything that floats, you're going to be able to troll at a wider range of speeds without worrying about where it's running in the water column.
How cold of water will you troll in? If there's not ice on it, will you troll it?
Yeah, you know what? If we'd had this conversation a decade ago, I probably wouldn't be saying what I'm going to say right now. But quite honestly, I don't think the water can be too cold to troll anymore. If you can get out on the water and there's not ice, in unsafe conditions, the launches are open. We're having great success catching walleyes, cohos, and other species of fish, lake trout, and water as cold as 34, 35 degrees. I mean, it gets any colder than that, and you can walk on it.
What adventures for the Fishing 411 crew coming up this summer, this next season?
Yeah, we've got some pretty cool things in mind. The one I'm looking forward to the most, of course, I know you like to go to Ontario. You do quite a bit of hunting up there and some fishing. We're going to go up to the Canadian side of Lake Superior, and we're going to chase coaster brook trout. It's a little-known fishery up there that I've known about for some time, and I just haven't had an opportunity to get up there and experience it. We're talking brook trout in the neighborhood of 5-6 pounds. Those are going to be gorgeous fish. And that'll be early in the year, right after right after the ice comes off. And it'll also be in combination with lake trout that are using these same reefs at the same time. So we'll be casting for them. One bite should be potentially a lake trout. The next bite could potentially be a brook trout, and that is going to be a cool fishery.
Oh, and in the North Shore of Lake Superior, it's going to be beautiful surroundings. I'll look forward to that one, Mark. Always a pleasure. Have a good season, and listen, you and I will stay in touch, I'm sure.
Thanks, Mike. My pleasure.
The pleasure's mine. Mark Romanack of Fishing 411, fishing411.net. That's fishing411.net. You can also follow these guys. And Jake. Mark mentioned his son, Jake. Jake is very much involved in the company these days. You can follow them on social media as well. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, you know how we're going to wrap it up, right? It's going to be with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. The last few weeks, I have finally gotten smart, and I have posted a copy of the recipe for the week on my Facebook page. Only took me about 30 years to figure it out, but okay, we're getting there. We're getting there. Anyway, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll wrap it all up with Chef Dixie Dave Minar right here on Outdoor Magazine. Thank you so much for joining me this week here on the Outdoor Magazine radio show, on the Outdoor Magazine radio network, on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. And if you've been with me before, you know that I wrap up each week's show, just like I used to with the old Outdoor Magazine TV show. We wrap up each week's radio show with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar, and I wouldn't want to let you down this week, so he's back with us once again. David, welcome back. How you doing, buddy?
Really good, Michael, and enjoying this weather, that's for darn sure.
Oh, my goodness. It's hard to believe it's only mid-February.
I know it. Can you believe it? It's unreal.
Oh, it is. It is. And, Dave, we've been making a lot of people happy these last couple of weeks. If I would have known it was this easy to make people happy, I would have been doing this all along. And I'm talking about posting your weekly recipes on my Facebook page. It seems like such a simple thing. I wasn't doing it. Now I am, and people are very appreciative.
That's great. I'm really happy to do it.
What do we have this time around, Dave?
Well, we got a razzmatazz rabbit. We did this for the TV show years and years ago, and it's on page 154 in the cookbook, the last. And you're going to need, this could be either whole rabbits or just rabbit loins. So if you're going to use whole rabbits, you want to cut them up by, 6 or 8 pieces. And the loins, what you're going to do is you're going to trim all the fat and the silver from the loins. You're going to pound the meat between saran wrap to about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch thick. They're not very big anyways. So, and if you want to use the whole rabbits, by all means, dredge the meat in flour, shake off any excess in a hot pan with a small amount of olive oil. Brown the meat on both sides, add onions and garlic, and saute for a minute. So now, you're going to you have 1 onion diced up fine, 1 clove of garlic diced fine, a jar of chicken gravy or a pint, both are the same, 16 ounces, a couple ounces of heavy cream, a pint of fresh or frozen raspberries, and you want to save some for garnishment. So you're going to put a few of these around each plate when you serve it. About 3 ounces of razzmatazz liquor, or any raspberry liquor would be fine. A 6-ounce package of mushrooms sliced thin, olive oil, and flour. So if you're going to use whole rabbits, you're going to brown it off, get it in a casserole, and then put that on the side in the same pan. You're going to saute the onions and garlic for about a minute, and then flambe away from the stove hood. Add the liquor, the gravy, and heat it over high heat to reduce it down by maybe close to 1/2. Add the cream and mushrooms and cook additional couple minutes. And then the last 30 seconds of cooking, add the raspberries and careful stirring. This is only for the loin. And the raspberries are very tender, so when you're stirring it, you don't want to lose their firm consistency. Now the whole rabbits, you're going to put everything in except for the raspberries. And at the very end, you're going to add the raspberries about 10 minutes or so, and let them heat up and cook through. And you're going to bake the whole rabbits for about 1.25 hours or so. And the loins, you're going to cook them maybe 10 minutes because they're really nice and tender.
How would you serve it, Dave?
I would serve it over rice.
I think that would be a good choice. Oh, that sounds excellent. So you say, though, whether it's rabbits or blueberries like last week's recipe, if you put those in too early, they're going to get mushy?
Yep. They'll cook away to nothing. And you could use this for partridge, too. I've made this with partridge, and I've made it with pheasant at the restaurant.
So it's a versatile dish.
It is. It's for wild game, it really lends well to most all small game.
Is that true, Dave, that if you come up with like one of your recipes you're using for small game, can you likely use it for pretty much all small game?
It depends. It depends on what you're trying to do, just depending on the recipe, You can't, you can have a blanket saying that everything goes.
Yeah,
it won't.
yeah. Well, and it's like fish. I mean, you look at a walleye or a perch, it's a completely different meat than a salmon or a steelhead.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So, David, have you seen any dead skunks in the road up there in your travels yet?
3 of them yesterday.
3?
I enjoyed their aroma 3 different times.
Well, the next thing is red-winged blackbirds, and I think that's going to be a while. It's only mid-February.
I know it. It's crazy.
It is. David, always a pleasure. I'll look forward to talking to you next week.
How's your ticket sales going, Michael?
Ticket sales, we are almost sold out. People can thank you for asking. Our big Trinity Monitor Wild Game Dinner and Auction, Saturday, March 2nd. Go to one.bidpal.net, one.bidpal.net. Wild Game Chef Extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar, our guest of honor this year. We will feature one of his recipes. Dave, I can't wait to see you there.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Wild Game Chef Extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show. Again, one.bidpal, one.bidpal.net, one.bidpal.net/Trinity Monitor. Get your tickets for our big Trinity Monitor Wild Game Dinner and Auction, Saturday, March 2nd at the Great Hall in Midland. Wonderful, fabulous live auction items, including hunts, fishing trips, gear, guns, wild game, good friends, fellowship. What more could you ask? One.bidpal.net, one.bidpal.net/Trinity Monitor, Saturday, March 2nd. My name is Mike Avery. This show is called Outdoor Magazine. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. Love to hear from you. Let me know what's on your mind. Share your old sayings with me. And I will talk with you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine.